You use money every single day to buy coffee, to pay rent, to save for the future. But have you ever stopped and asked, where does money actually come from? Who decides how much it's worth? And why does it seem to disappear from your pocket so fast? Most people never ask these questions, but once you do, everything changes. Think about everything you learned in school. Math, history, literature, maybe a foreign language. All useful, right? But there's one subject that was almost never mentioned: money. How it works, how it's created, how to grow it. And that's not an accident. When you don't understand money, you're easier to control. You work harder, you borrow more, and you never quite get ahead. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to pull back the curtain. I'll show you the hidden machine behind every dollar you earn, spend, or save. No boring lectures, no complicated jargon. Just a simple, honest map of how money really moves in this world. By the end, you'll see the game differently, and more importantly, you'll know how to play it. Here's exactly what you'll learn in the next 9 minutes. First, how money evolved from barter to the digital dollars in your bank account. Second, how central banks create money out of thin air and why most money is actually debt. Third, how inflation silently steals your purchasing power. And finally, 3 simple steps you can take right now to stop being a victim of the system and start building real wealth. Let's go back in time, long before credit cards or even paper money. If you lived in a small village and had cows but needed wheat for bread, you had to find someone who had wheat and wanted cows. That system is called barter, and it worked until it didn't. What if the wheat farmer already had enough cows? Or what if your cow was worth more than a bag of wheat? You'd need to find a fair trade, and that was often impossible. Imagine walking around with a cow every time you wanted to buy bread. It's heavy, it's messy, and you can't make change. Barter had huge limits. So people started looking for something that everyone could agree had value. Something easy to carry, hard to destroy, and always in demand. That's how the first forms of money were born. At different times and places, money took many forms: seashells, salt, cattle, even large stones. But eventually, metals like gold and silver won out. They were rare, durable, and could be divided into small pieces. A gold coin was something everyone recognized and trusted. And trust, as you'll see, is the real foundation of all money.
Carrying gold coins was still heavy and risky, so merchants started leaving their gold with trusted goldsmiths and getting paper receipts. Those receipts could be traded as if they were gold, and that's exactly how paper money began, as a promise, a claim on real gold. Over time, people stopped asking for the gold and just used the paper. The promise became more important than the metal itself. Fast forward to today. Money isn't backed by gold anymore. In the US, the creator of money is the Federal Reserve, often called the Fed. They don't just print physical dollars. Most money is digital, just numbers on a screen. The Fed decides how many dollars exist, and they do it through a process that might surprise you. It's not like they have a giant printing press running all the time. It's much more subtle and powerful. Here's the key. Most money is created when banks give loans. Say you want to buy a car. You go to a bank, they approve a loan, and they credit your account with, let's say, $20,000. That money didn't exist before. The bank didn't take it from someone else's savings. They created it digitally, right then. And suddenly, there's $20,000 more in the economy. That's how money is born. But it doesn't stop there. Banks can lend much more than they actually hold in reserves. This is called the multiplier effect. Imagine you deposit $1,000. The bank keeps 10% as reserve and lends out $900. That $900 gets spent, deposited in another bank, which then lends out $810, and so on. In the end, that single $1,000 deposit can create thousands of dollars in new money. It's like magic, except it's real, and it's happening right now. So here's the mind-bending truth. Almost all the money in your wallet or bank account is actually someone's debt. When you hold a dollar, it's really an IOU from the banking system. That dollar exists because someone somewhere took out a loan.
If everyone paid off all their debts at once, most of our money would vanish. That's how deeply linked money and debt have become.
When more money is created, each dollar becomes less valuable. That's inflation, the silent thief that eats away at your savings. Think about it. A movie ticket cost $5 20 years ago. Now it's $15. The movie hasn't changed, but the dollars used to buy it have. Inflation is simply the result of too much money chasing the same amount of goods, and it hits hardest those who save cash under the mattress. The Fed is technically independent from the government. That means politicians can't just order them to print money, but they work closely together. The government spends, the Fed manages the money supply. They set interest rates, the price of borrowing money. If the economy is growing too fast and inflation is rising, they raise rates to cool things down. If there's a recession, they lower rates to encourage spending and investment.
Interest rates are like the thermostat of the economy. When it's too hot, inflation high, they turn up the rates, making loans expensive. People borrow less, spend less, and the economy cools. When it's too cold, recession, they lower rates, making borrowing cheap. Businesses invest, people buy homes, and money starts flowing again. It's a delicate balancing act, and they don't always get it right. In times of crises, like the 2008 financial crash or the 2020 pandemic, central banks often create massive amounts of new money. They call it quantitative easing. But that new money doesn't reach everyone equally. It flows first into financial markets, boosting stock prices and making the wealthy even wealthier. By the time it trickles down to regular people, prices have already gone up. It's one reason the gap between rich and poor keeps growing. So what does all this mean for you and your money? First, if you keep all your savings in cash, under the mattress or in a low-interest bank account, you're slowly losing purchasing power. Inflation is like a leak in your bucket. $100 today might buy only $95 worth of goods next year. Over a decade, that's huge. Cash is not safe. It's slowly melting away. To protect yourself, you need assets, things that tend to rise with inflation. Stocks represent ownership in companies that can raise prices. Real estate rents and values often go up with inflation. Gold has been a store of value for thousands of years. These assets act like a shield. When inflation attacks the value of cash, your assets can grow and keep your purchasing power strong. Here's another twist. Not all debt is bad. If you borrow at a fixed rate to buy a house, inflation actually helps you. You're paying back the loan with dollars that are worth less over time, while your house, hopefully, appreciates. That's why wealthy people aren't afraid of debt. They use it strategically. Smart debt builds wealth. Dumb debt, like high-interest credit cards, destroys it. The money system is a complex machine built over centuries. It has flaws, it has winners and losers. But once you understand how it works, you stop being a passenger and start being a driver. You can make informed choices, where to put your savings, when to borrow, how to protect your future. Knowledge really is power, especially when it comes to money. You don't need to be an economist or a Wall Street trader. You just need to understand the basic rules of the game, and then play it differently than most people. Play it smarter. Because when you control your money, you control more of your life, and that's a freedom worth fighting for. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit that subscribe button. It helps more people find this channel. And leave a comment. What's one money lesson you wish you'd learned earlier? I read them all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.